Well, hello and welcome to Word 2016, one of the components of Office 2016. In this course, we're going to be talking about our word processing application. If you're not familiar with word processing applications, well, yeah, I'm your guy. So I'm going to walk through what the Word application can do for you. We're going to talk about all the different features that are available, and we're going to go through everything from simple to complex. We're going to start off with an introduction to the actual Word interface. And the best way to do that is to actually jump in and take a look at Word. Now, if you look at what I'm looking at here on the screen, we're looking at Microsoft Word. So one of the things I want to make sure that I do is cover all of the components that are available. Because as we go through all of the different functionality that Word has, I'm going to be referencing things like the ribbon or the status bar or the menus or the quick access toolbar. So I want to make sure that as we go through this, everybody's on the same page and we all understand exactly what I'm talking about. So when looking at the application, we're going to start at the very top and we're going to kind of work our way down with all the different areas that Microsoft Word provides for us. If you look in the very upper left-hand corner, this little section that you see up here, it's got kind of a little icon with a circle on it, and it's got the backwards pointing arrow. This is what's called my Quick Launch Toolbar. And what the Quick Launch Toolbar does for me is it gives me quick access to a certain limited subset of tools that Word provides for me. And I'm just going to let you know, one of the most important tools you're going to know when using a word processor is on this quick access toolbar right now. And it's that arrow that kind of goes back and to the left. And just so you know, that is the undo function. And we'll talk about what undo does and how valuable it is and how powerful it is as we go through this particular course. But for right now, remember, that's the quick access toolbar. Now, if we move over to our right in that same blue bar here at the top, you'll notice that this says MS-EULA, edited for initial open, doc. That is the title or the name of this particular document. So as you're working through all of your different files or all your different pieces of paper that you're working on in your word processing application, as you save it, it's going to give it a name, or you're going to give it a name, actually. And it's going to then let you know when you're looking at the document, this is the document that you're looking at, that title up there at the top. Now on the right-hand side over here, there are a couple of window controls. Now the window controls are specific to the Microsoft Word window, which is also synonymous with the application. Typically we have Microsoft Word as the application, and within that application we're going to have multiple windows that we can access. So we may reference that a couple of times. You'll also notice that I've got my name here. If you're connected to Microsoft's OneDrive, which is usually a function of the Office suite, this is who you are, who you're logged in as in this particular application. So as you can see here, I'm logged in as Joshua Schofer. That happens to be me. Yes, I'm your instructor for this course. The other controls here, we'll come back and talk about what they do. Again, we're talking about just the areas that are available. The next line that you see here are our file menus, or also our tabs. The way that Microsoft Word and all of the other Office applications have been designed is that all of my commands, my functions, my tools, my things that I need to do are arranged in groupings. And those groupings are organized by tabs. So as you can see here, I've got File, Home, Insert, Design, Layout, Reference, Mailings, View, blah, blah, blah. And you'll see that those are going to change as we work through the application. And we're going to be referencing on the Home tab or on the Insert tab, or on the Layout tab. So again, you need to make sure you understand what those are and where you can get to them. Before I leave that though, I want to talk about this little area right here. This is something new in 2016, and what this is basically a natural language help system. If you've seen the commercials on TV for Siri, or seen the commercials for Cortana with whatever that actor's name is, and hey Cortana, can you do this for me? Same concept here. It's built into the operating system now, and of course all of the Microsoft applications, that it just lets me say, what do I want to do? And I can just type in a question. How do I do this? And what it will do is actually go to the help menu and do its best to identify what is the answer to my question. Now, it may give me several options based on the help menu. This really is valuable if you're connected to the internet. Doesn't necessarily have to be connected to the internet, but the amount of information available is much more limited if you're not connected to the internet. And that's an important component, especially when we talk about this over here for the share button. With the OneDrive, with the online versions of saving things, you have the opportunity to share this file with other people and create collaboration. Microsoft has done a really good job of increasing the availability of the sharing and mutual editing of what's going on. 2016 actually gives you the ability to see what people are changing in real time. Thing to remember about that is that's done through an online service. So even though you're maybe storing this on your machine, when you send a link out, it's basically connecting in the cloud, allowing you to see what's going on at multiple instances of the exact same file that you're looking at here. So that's the tab bar, if you want to think of it that way. Just below that is what we call the ribbon. Now the ribbon is a collection of controls. Now, if you've used word processors in the past, maybe you used them back in Microsoft XP days or things like that, older versions did not have the ribbon. What they had is menus that had drop-downs. Now, those drop-down menus allowed me to collect all these functional pieces, but I had to go click, click, click to get to some of those commands, and it became very difficult to navigate. So what Microsoft did in version 2010, I believe, don't quote me on that, but when Office 2010 or 2007, I think, came out, they introduced the ribbon. And when it first came out, people were like, oh my gosh, what is this thing? Because it was new, and change is probably the biggest factor for adoption of a new product. It's not necessarily that it's easier or not easier or more difficult, it's just different. Well, what the ribbon does is it takes a lot of those commands and makes them buttons. So as you can see here, if I look at this, I have lots of different controls, things that I can actually press on right here in front of me. So as we go through the application, we're going to be talking about each of these controls. We're going to talk about what this button does, what does this button mean, how do I use this button, and things like that. So again, when I'm referencing these kinds of things, I may say go to the Home tab and go into the font group. Because the way the ribbon is actually organized is it has groups of controls. And you can see that it has right here clipboard, it has font, it's got paragraph, it's got styles, it's got editing. And each of the tabs, let me switch over to insert here, each of these individual tabs has a different set of groups. And each of those groups has different sets of controls on it. We're going to find out in the advanced course that you can actually take all of this and rearrange it to match the way you want to do it. So there are some advanced capabilities built in to make these controls easier for you. We're going to work initially on the defaults that Microsoft provides us. Again, they've done a real good job. They're the experts. They have a lot of feedback. They have a pretty good idea about the way things work. All right. So again, we've got our quick launch toolbar. We've got our file name, which is our document name here. We have our window controls. We have our tabs with our real search functionality. We have our share, again, that's sharing and editing. We then have the ribbon with all of the tools and groups that are available on that. Now, just below that is we have the actual document area. This is where the actual word processing is going to be taking place. Everything else is kind of ancillary. It's all the controls and manipulations. This is where the rubber meets the road, if you want to think of it that way. Now, what we're looking at here is we're actually looking at a document that I pulled up and have done a little bit of editing to, just from a formatting perspective. But it's a Microsoft end user license agreement for the old Windows 7 starter version. What is there at this point doesn't matter. Just understand that this is an example of what a document would look like in this window. Now we're going to see that we can manipulate how things appear within this document area. Some people call it a stage, some people call it a paper or my desk or some things like that. The idea being that this is where I'm actually doing my work. As we start talking about using a word processor, I'm going to do my best to relate it to what people are familiar with. We're all familiar with a piece of paper, with a pencil. Well, most of us are familiar with a typewriter and the ability to actually type information. So some of those terms I'm going to kind of use interchangeably in terms of what is my paper, what is my document, what is my file. They all really mean about the same thing. But again, that's my document area, and we'll see how we can change that. Along here on the bottom, I've got an auto hide toolbar here, so please forgive me. I have what's called the status bar. And what the status bar does for me is gives me information about the document. On the bottom left-hand corner, you can see I can see what page I'm at. I can see how many words I have. I can see what language I'm using currently. It's one nice feature about Microsoft Office and Word specifically. It does have the ability to have multiple dictionaries, which means if you are in a foreign language, if you're working with a group overseas, you have the ability to use a different library of dictionary so that when you're typing, it doesn't think every word is misspelled. Because we're going to see that what Word is doing for you is actually helping you along the way because of things like spell check and because of things like grammar check going along the way. Now on the bottom right-hand side of this is more of our control area for this particular window. Remember I said that we can change the way things look on the particular document that we have here. Well, this area actually provides me a different way of selecting the view that I look at. Now, I'm not going to go into that right now. Just know that when I talk about the view area on the status bar, this is what I'm talking about because we have functionality like Zoom, we have reading view, we have web layout, we have lots of different ways to look at that. So again, the Word interface is all going to be focused around here. So as we go through the Word application, we're going to be touching on each one of these components. So what I'd like to do now is to go ahead and go deeper into each one of those components and talk about what are some of the pieces that are there, some of the other details that we need to know as we work through that process.